Good evening, Danvers, and welcome to the January 28th meeting of the Danvers Cable Commission. First item on the agenda is to discuss the executive order on remote participation and remote conduct for open meetings. So a couple of items of administrative nature. As a preliminary matter, this is Coley Rybicki, Chair of the Cable Committee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Bill Bates?
Yes.
Bill Nicholson?
Colby, I'm not able to get him off mute.
I think he has to unmute himself, right?
Yeah, Bill, if you're looking at your screen, you should have a microphone with a line through it. If you can tap on that to unmute yourself.
Is that better now?
Yes.
Yep, you got it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
I'm here.
Steve Pradenas?
Steve, you'll have to do the same thing. You'll have to see the button with the microphone with the line and just tap that and it will unmute.
I think I'm unmuted now.
Yes.
Here.
Okay, thank you. David Mills?
Coley, I'm here, but I'm not a member. I'm the liaison, and I'm here as a spy to go back to the selectmen and tell them what a great job you're all doing. But I am here.
This is your senior advisor, David. You're not a spy. You're a good guy.
Okay, Bill.
Thank you, David. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Jen Breaker?
Here.
Thank you. Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Who I don't think is here yet.
Correct.
Note of that. And then Greg Dolan?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. So, introduction to remote meeting. Good evening. The open meeting of the Cable Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor's Executive Order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the Governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. For this meeting, the cable company is convening remotely via the Teams app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Meeting ground rules. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking, and please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through myself, taking care to identify yourself. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Since Bill Hewig is not in attendance right now, I will move to item number 3 on the agenda, which is we need to agree on a date to hold our next meeting. So Jen, I'll turn it over to you to maybe tee up some dates that would be good for you guys, and then we'll see if the rest of the committee can make those dates.
Sure. Thank you, Coley. So we were going to ask Bill Hewig when he joins, and I did send him an email to check in on his status, to give us a high-level overview of the process. Again, just a little refresher for everybody, since it's been about 2 years since we did this last, and talk through what the process will look like this time a bit, and then answer some questions. So this was going to be just a real high-level overview meeting, and then selecting next dates to dig in and start the work. So with that in mind, do Thursdays work well for everybody around this time?
Thursday, when again?
Just seeing if Thursdays around 5 o'clock work well for everybody. If you want to just do a thumbs up if that works well for you, I can offer a date. So we could try either Thursday, February 18th, or Thursday, I can't do the 15th, 25th. So would the 18th work for everybody?
I'm okay with that, Jen.
Okay. Looks like a lot of thumbs up. Should we try selecting a second meeting date too, so we have 2 booked? I know people, we're not doing much, but it's good to get things on the calendar. What do we think about March 18th as well at 5?
It should be all right.
Yes, that early March date is fine with me, and I'm just checking February 28th to make sure I don't have a water board meeting that night. So just
February 18th, Coley.
February 18th?
Yep, February and March, both on the 18th.
Okay. Yeah, that works for me.
Okay.
Water board is going to be February 25th, so the 18th really works well.
Okay. Perfect. Coley, if you would like, I'm happy to help kind of talk about item number 2 while we wait for Bill.
Sure. Go right ahead, please. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to be tackling the Comcast license renewal, and what I can do ahead of our next meeting is send out to the committee some documentation that we used last time, the report we generated, some notes from the process, the public hearing notes, all the material we used during the Verizon license process, so we can review that ahead of time. I did speak with Attorney Hewig prior to this meeting, and he does believe we'll be able to use most of the ascertainment that we went through previously. We will update that, and Greg and I can work on that to get an updated needs and budget assessment to the committee. I will also forward the DCAP budget documents to the committee ahead of the next meeting, and we can add an agenda item on to review the DCAP budget for that agenda as well.
So just a clarifying question, Jen, because it's been a little while. I assume that DCAT is on a calendar year budget schedule, or do they follow the town's budget schedule?
They're on a calendar year budget
Calendar
schedule.
year, okay.
Sorry, excuse me, Jen. We actually are same as the town. We're July 1.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Just wanted to clear it up.
So we'll get Greg did send over all of their budget documentation, so we'll send that off to the committee. I can probably get that off to everybody either this evening, once the meeting adjourns, or tomorrow morning. And then the documents related to our previous cable renewal and ascertainment process, I will get off to the committee early next week. We will have to hold another public hearing, just like we did before. As we get closer to that, I'm anticipating that will be March or April. We'll determine if it is a virtual public hearing or if we're able to do that in person. Right now, we're not able to accommodate any in-person committee meetings because of the restrictions on the number of people we can have together at one time. So even socially distanced, we can't gather in groups larger than 10. We should plan on the next meeting, the February 18th meeting, being a virtual meeting. The governor has extended the 25% capacity limits through February 8th, but he has done that a few times and extended it a few times. So we would rather be prepared to be virtual in case he does do another extension. I can also answer questions that committee members have specifically about the process or the next steps for the Comcast license.
So let me go down the roll to make sure we're following protocol. So, Bill, do you have any questions? Bill Bates?
Nope, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Bill Nicholson? Hearing none, I'll move over to Steve Prodernas. Do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. And David Mills, our liaison? Oh,
Bill Nicholson, I'm sorry, I have no questions.
okay, thank you. And David Mills, any questions from your standpoint?
Thank you, Carly. No, but what exactly is it that we're considering now? Tell me again. Sorry that I'm trying to pay attention. What did you, questions about what, Coley? Now, Jen just explained what 2 agenda items need to be coming up and making what decisions? I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Yeah, the question was, is there anything related to the review process or the renewal process? Since it's been a while since we got together as a group and renewed the Verizon license. Jen was asking if anybody had any clarifying questions around what we're about to go through now, having to go look at the Comcast license. So,
Thank you. I had no comment. Thank you, Coley. No
okay.
comment.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, if we've closed on number 2, I'll move on to item number 4 on our agenda since we've covered the other 3 items already. Any old business, any committee member would like to bring up? And again, I'll go right down the roll call since that's the virtual protocol. So Bill, do you have any, Bill Bates, do you have any new or old business you'd like to bring before the board?
Thank you. I would just like to check in. I know from my notes, there was some problems with live broadcasts from Comcast last year, and it was an ongoing battle. And I was wondering if perhaps through you, Mr. Chairman, Greg could give us an update on how things are now.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. I'm going to say last names because we have 2 Bills on the committee. So thank you, Bill Bates, and over to you, Greg Nolan, please.
Sure, thank you. So the issues with Comcast have been resolved with the live feed. A lot of those issues were related to some of the equipment we had, the modulators, which they switched out. And since that has happened, we've been in much better position with them. Additionally, one of the features we've sort of added during this pandemic is we are able to pull down feeds from the internet now, so we can really go live wherever we have an internet drop. So that's how we're pulling a lot of these remote meetings now without necessarily having to be tied into the iNet like we were before. So that's given us a little bit of flexibility as far as the ability to go live. And it's so far it's worked very well.
Okay, thank you. I'll move over to Bill Nicholson. Any new or old business?
Well, I just We were notified in the House here that Comcast was going up on their prices again. They have not done that yet, but I'm not sure what the increase is going to be. Have you heard anything on that, Greg?
So the change that I've heard, Cole, is that all right if I jump in? I don't know if that's
Sure.
for you. Okay. The biggest change I've heard on the Comcast side is more related to the internet. I know that they've added, I believe they're adding a data cap where if you use over a certain amount of data a month, they're going to be adding a fee. That's unrelated to cable, so I'm not sure if there's any cable price increases as well. I have not heard of it, but that certainly does not mean it's not happening.
Thank you
Hey,
for
everybody,
the update.
this is Bill Hewick.
Hi there, Bill. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, my apologies. I just can't get this Teams to work, and then I couldn't find the ID number to call in for the telephone conference, but I did finally find it. So my apologies.
Okay. Okay, what I'd like to do, Bill, is we're just on our last agenda item right now. We're on item number 4 and we're halfway through it. I'd like to continue going through that. And then we'll revert back to item number 2, on which you were going to lead the discussion on. So if you permit me a few minutes, that's the way I'd like to proceed.
Sure, certainly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Bill, back on that Comcast comment, I'll echo what Greg said. This came up in front of my day job today. The issue is that they are going to charge for internet and data usage above a certain amount in an additional charge. And in the workplace, this is of a concern with so many people working from home right now. You know, our employees were asking us if we were going to reimburse for the excess right now since everybody's working from home. But it's a relatively new topic. It's just come up in the last week. And I'll concur with what Greg said. I have not heard anything on the cable side. So.
Thank
right.
you, Coley.
Okay, you're welcome, Bill. Steve Prodenas, over to you. Any new or old business?
No, I have no new business, but I can add something on the Comcast, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they lost 250,000 subscribers last, I guess it's last quarter. And they did announce a couple of months ago that they were going to impose a data cap. I think it's 1.2 terabytes, something like that. And they've gone up all along the whole East Coast. It's nothing, you know, it's nothing unusual, really, unfortunately.
Okay. All right, we'll take the matter under advisement and we'll keep our eyes and ears open to see if they're planning to do anything on the cable side. I have not heard that.
Coley, may I speak for just a minute?
Sure, David. I'll defer the floor to you. David Mills, please.
Right, I'm just, as I say, I'm the liaison from the select board. And, you know, if there's anything that you want me to advocate for or bring to the board, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to tell them I was here and that we had a meeting. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, great. No, thank you for that offer, and we will certainly avail ourselves of that if we need to. Thank you. The one question I have for Greg, Greg, if my memory serves me correctly, we were having some issues on the Verizon side of the house last time around with some equipment, et cetera, et cetera. Are we in good standing with Verizon at the moment?
Yes. So one thing I know that came up before that we had discussed, I'm not sure if this is what you're referring to, is the HD channel.
Right.
So just a quick recap with that. There was a sort of a challenging regulatory environment, shall we say, last year after the town signed the contract with Verizon, where there is an option for the town to request a high definition channel that has to come from the selectmen. My recollection is that the board deferred any recommendation on that because there was a question about whether or not they would be able to sort of reduce the amount of franchise fees by the value of the HD channel. I think that that's less of a concern going forward because the makeup of the FCC has changed with the new administration, and it is likely that that decision would not come down in a detrimental way. So I think that given that, I would feel more comfortable with that discussion because I think there's a little bit more clear of an answer about how that'll fall.
Okay. But in general, the equipment throughout town's behaving. I remember we had some issues around that Steve kind of alluded to on the Comcast side, but the equipment's remaining steady?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I would now like to refer back to item number 2 on the agenda and yield the floor to Bill Hewig. Bill, over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm just looking at the review of Comcast license renewal process, right. The renewal process that we went through with Verizon 2 years ago is the same process we're embarked on now, and that is it's incumbent on us to determine what our future community cable-related needs will be for the next license, the next Comcast license, which should be 10 years, can be maybe up to 10 years, 3 to 10 years, and I always recommend the longest. We undertook ascertainment 2 or 3 years back for the Verizon license, and we came up with a number, a capital number and an annual operating grant number that we wanted, which would be divided up between the 2 cable operators. And we can still use the same ascertainment that we used 3 years ago for Verizon, or we can tweak it a little if we want, because it's 3 years later. But I imagine if we tweak it, we won't be tweaking it a lot, and I'm hopeful that it will not take a lot of time. The goal is, as those of you who participated with Verizon will remember, we prepare a proposal, if you will, or a business plan, or a submission that we give to the cable company, and we say, here's what we're looking for over the next term of your license. And for Verizon, it will be 5 years. We are looking for 5% of gross annual revenues. That was the strategy from 2019. Although right now Verizon is only giving us 3, but in their license it says if you get a higher number from the other cable company, we'll match it. So the strategy obviously is to get 5% from Verizon, 5% from Comcast, and then let Verizon know, and they'll raise their annual grant to 5% as well. So that's the first half of it, and that's the easy part. The second part of it is, apart from the annual operating grant that's expressed in terms of a percentage of gross annual revenues, we also need to tell Verizon that we want a fixed, finite amount of cash over a 5-year period. Verizon, I think I mentioned it before when we last had our discussion, and perhaps you remember from 3 years ago, Verizon will only do a 5-year license. So the total ascertainment package that we envisioned back in the days when, Verizon only did a 5-year license. Comcast will do 10. The total ascertainment picture that we envisioned when we were doing Verizon was for a 10-year period, a set amount of capital dollars. And I'm trying to go through my notes and remember how much that was. I have written down, I have 650,000, but I'm not sure whether that's Comcast. That must be the part that we were going to ask for Comcast. Is that correct?
I think we would have to go back and take a look at our meeting notes to recall that number.
Yeah, so there is a number out there, because what we got from Verizon was 5% gross annual 0.5 gross annual revenues annually for 5 years as part of the capital contribution, as well as $21,000 a year for 5 years. So I don't happen to know what the 0.5% of gross annual revenues figure is that we get from Verizon, but the total amount of our capital grant for Verizon would equate, if it's $21,000 a year and you multiply it by 10 for Comcast, because we're getting a 10-year license, starts off at $210,000. And then whatever the 0.5% of gross annual revenues is, whatever that equates to, say it's another, let's just say it's another $20,000 a year. So what you're looking at is something like $400,000 over the Verizon 5-year term, and we would want Comcast to pay a proportional amount according to their proportion of subscribers. And I think it's about 60-40. Comcast having 60 and Verizon having 40. So it's kind of, I hope I'm being clearer than I feel like I am here, but here's the challenge for us. We have already got half of our ascertainment accomplished. That's the half that we got from Verizon. So the first task for us is to calculate, is to reduce what we're getting from Verizon into for the capital grant from Verizon into an absolute fixed number. How much is that over 5 years or in 1 year? How much capital are we getting from Verizon? It looks to me like we're getting about $400,000 or $500,000 over 5 years, but I don't know what the 0.5% of gross annual revenue equates to. Let me just do.
Can I interject there, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, I'll yield the floor to Bill Bates right now. Go ahead, Bill.
Bill, I'm looking at our notes from the memorandum from the town manager to the Board of Selectmen, and it says that 0.05 gross revenue for capital support of roughly $50,000 a year in total.
Okay.
And if I could just
50,000.
also clarify, are we looking to do a 5 or 10-year contract with Comcast? Because we're trying to get them to align.
Yeah, hi, this is totally right, Vicky. That's the exact question I was just going to ask Bill. So I think, great minds think alike. I was going to say, I thought when we started this process off, when I first became a member of the cable committee, we did have 2 different renewal dates on the table. And I thought the drive was to get us to the same date for renewal so we wouldn't have to do 2 separate contracts at 2 separate times over time.
That's correct. Yeah.
Well, let me just, so what that would mean would be we would get a 3-year license from Comcast. And then in 2024, let's see, 2024, we sit down with both of them again to renegotiate. Normally, I would say, if this were 10 years ago, I'd say that's a good strategy. My concern now is that each year, cable subscribers are leaving, the cable companies are losing subscribership, and each year they're getting in less and less money, and each year they're getting less generous. My thought is that you're going to get a better deal from Comcast now than you will in 3 years' time. And if we can lock in a really good 10-year contract from Comcast, then the 2 licenses are not going to be in lockstep. But we do have the level playing field feature of both licenses that allows us to say, hey, the other guy gave us this, you've got to match it. If you don't, we won't give you a renewal license. That's a pretty strong argument. So there are 2 options. You can look at Comcast and say, let's get a 10-year license because we'll probably get the best deal out of them we can, maybe better than what we'll get in 3 years, and certainly better than what we get in 5 years probably. Or you can go for a 3-year Comcast license and then have the 2 of them in sync in the year 2024. And then we sit down with both of them and we negotiate over, a 10-year license from Comcast and another 5-year license from Verizon. So I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you which one will end up being better. My gut reaction is it might be better, even though I remember that we did talk about this 2 or 3 years ago. Let's get the 2 licenses in sync. My gut reaction is to suggest that you still might want to consider doing a 10-year license from Comcast now. But let me just look at some of the numbers here. somebody said that the 5% was $50,000. Was that $50,000 per year or 50,000 for the total for the 5?
Mr. Chairman, it's Jen Breaker. If I can just clarify, the 50,000 is the 0.5% plus the 21. The two numbers together equal 50,000. So with that,
right,
it's
so we're
roughly
getting
39.
Okay. So we're getting a total of 250,000 in capital over 5 years from Verizon.
Yeah, this is Coley Radke, Chair again. I think the committee needs to get together and decide what our approach is on length of license. And my concern right now is we live in a technological world that's changing very, very rapidly. And I consider this cable thing kind of a technical product. And I am being brutally honest. I'm just a little bit concerned about locking into a long-term 10-year contract when the world around us is changing dramatically each year in the technical space. And maybe it's a further meeting about, I'd really like the experts in the room, namely you, Bill, and Greg, back at us and give us the pluses and minuses of locking into a contract that has a tenure of that longevity. And we don't need to discuss it now. I just think it's a future item we need to talk about.
I mean, there's a tension between the two strategies. And I have found people have been saying, oh, let's not do a 10-year license because technology is going to change. People have been saying that for 20 years. And I have found that technology issues tend to take care of themselves. For one thing, we can't negotiate technology items into the license. We can't obligate a cable operator to give us the best and the latest technology. Excuse me. The FCC regulations don't permit it. And so technology issues, so the result has been that cable companies upgrade their technology and they give you better technology during the course of a license without being required to do so because they want to stay competitive. And a good example of that is fiber optics. Comcast started switching over to fiber optics in the middle of a lot of licenses in the back in the early part of the 2000s. They weren't obligated to do it, but they did it anyway because they wanted to stay ahead of the technology curve and they wanted to keep their subscribers and be competitive. So I have concluded after about 15 or 20 years of that issue arising, I've concluded that technology is not a good reason to enter into a short-term license, and that if there are other good reasons to enter into a short-term license, you might want to consider doing so, but I frankly don't know of any other reasons for entering into a short-term license. It's been my experience, and I firmly believe it, that you get a better deal when you're looking at a long-term license. And the other benefit is you lock in a certain income stream for a longer period of time. And when you've got an access corporation that depends on income and on a predictable income stream over a long period of time, that is a tremendous benefit. If you go into a short-term license for Comcast for 3 years, you'll get a certain amount of capital for 3 years, but you don't know what you're going to get after that. And there's no guarantee that they'll match it. There's no guarantee that if we, for example, get from Comcast $100,000 a year for 3 years, there's no guarantee that in 3 years they're going to come back and say, okay, we'll give you the 100 for the rest of the next term of the license. It's up in the air. So my fear is that if you enter into a shorter term license, you're going to find that when you get down to the end of that term, the world is a lot less friendly towards getting generous capital grants than it is now. And I've seen that happen over the last 2 or 3 years. It is harder to get money out of Comcast now than it was 2 or 3 years ago. And the same has been true with Verizon. It's harder to get money out of them now than it was 3 or 5 or 7 or 10 years ago. I think that trend is the one we need to be more concerned about. And as I said, technology issues tend to take care of themselves. And to the extent that we will be obligated to buy or purchase new equipment because of changes in technology, that's the purpose of having ascertainment and saying, okay, we need $500,000 over 10 years. We don't know what it's going to be for, but we know we'll need it for something. So there's my thought, my 2 cents worth on long-term versus short-term.
Okay, Jenna, if we could, I'd like to put this as an agenda item for our next meeting. I think the committee needs to deliberate on this one.
Sure, I can add that. Also,
Okay.
if you recall, last year we there's a listing on a website that everyone uploads their cable contracts to. I'm blanking on where it is at the moment, but we could certainly take some time and review that and look at some of the more recent executed contracts and see what the term lengths are to provide that to the committee for reference as to what others are doing as well.
Yeah, I think, yeah, great idea. I think we'd be looking at term length and then also, have they seen a degradation in what they're getting for money, right? Let's see what that pattern's doing. I trust what Bill's telling us, but if we have data that we can go take a look at, I'd like to go take a look at it so we can say we're making database business decisions on this. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that commentary, Bill.
Certainly.
Jennifer, did you have any thoughts on item number 2?
I do not have anything else under item number 2.
Okay. I think we've covered our agenda. As chair, I would just ask if there's any committee member that has any saved last rounds they would like to speak to. I would yield the floor to them right now. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
May I just ask one question before you adjourn?
Sure, that's Steve. Steve, could you please just identify yourself for the listening audience? Thank you.
Certainly. Bill Hewig. And
Bill Hewig, sorry.
Yeah, my question is, has anybody from Comcast contacted us? And if so, who is it? Who is going to be our negotiating agent? Is it Jay Summers? Greg Franks? Kathy Maloney, maybe? I ask because it also makes a little bit of a difference who we're negotiating with, quite frankly.
Mr. Chairman, through you, it's Greg Franks has reached out to us, and
okay.
I can certainly forward you, Bill. I just got the information. I can forward to you into the committee the information he shared recently.
That's fine, and I'll reach out to him and tell him that I'm doing Danvers, just so he knows. But that's helpful information to know who it is. Thank you for that, Jen.
Okay, at this point, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you so much to everybody for their participation. Have a good evening, Danvers. Mask up and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Coley. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.